Hi everyone, this is Kitapult. As I'm sure FNAF fans already know, the living Tombstone came out with a FNAF 4 song. After listening to the lyrics a billion times, I finally figured out something that a lot of people don't realize about the song. I Got in a Time talks about ableism and dehumanization. You may be thinking, what? No it doesn't. In order to start explaining, we have to look at his previous 3 FNAF songs. The living Tombstone, or Tombstone for short, has a consistent habit of not sticking to the generally agreed FNAF story. From the implications that the animatronics don't want to kill and are being controlled by the puppet, and the fact that he made the puppet Golden Freddy's mother of all people, pretty much proves that Tombstone doesn't follow the normal story. And that's exactly what happened with his FNAF 4 song. The big change this time? The kid doesn't die. All of this is explained in the second verse, which is what I'll be focusing on and analyzing in this video. Let's hear the second verse again. Let's start with the line, "I'm getting sick from these apologies from people with priorities that their life matters so much more than mine." I experienced 2 significant deaths when I was little, and after about everyone and their dog had come up and told me, "I'm sorry this happened," I was getting sick of that. I felt like saying I'm sorry didn't really do anything to help the situation, and it doesn't. All it really does is show sympathy. This is exactly what is happening with the crying child. Everyone is telling him, "I'm sorry," but not doing anything more. As we already know from the game, his family isn't really nice. His brother bullies him, and his parents either don't see the bullying or don't care. His family too is probably just telling him, "I'm sorry," and then moving on. Lyric analysis. I'm getting sick from these apologies. The crying child is getting sick of everyone telling him, "I'm sorry." From people with priorities. The people who keep telling him, "I'm sorry," have higher priorities in their lives than staying behind and actually doing something. That their life matters so much more than mine. These people feel like their life is too important while ignoring the crying child's needs. On to the next lines. We'll continue straight down and come back to the first lines later. But I'm stuttering again. No one will listen and no one will understand. As we know, this child has been bitten in the head, and no matter how much game theory tries to reason out what the frontal lobe controls in the brain, there's no way Fredbear only injured his frontal lobe. Accidents aren't going to be that precise, especially considering the fact the crying child was squirming around trying to free himself before he was bitten. Probably the frontal lobe was the most damaged, but other parts of the brain were damaged too. And in Tombstone's interpretation of the game, one of the parts that was damaged was the part that controls speech. As we can tell from, "But I'm stuttering again," the crying child now has some speech impediments. And when people aren't saying words correctly, some people will perceive them as being unintelligent or stupid. This is best illustrated in a lab from my science class. What's funny is, I was planning to do this video, and the morning before I wrote the script, I get a lab that talks about this very subject. The lab reads, "Language and thinking are closely entwined. When you hear fuzzy language, it is a reflection of fuzzy thinking. Intelligent people strive to communicate accurately in both written and oral form, taking care to use precise language. They strive to avoid overgeneralizations. Instead, they support their statements with explanations, comparisons, quantification, and evidence." Why is this the very thing I Got No Time is critiquing? Intelligent people try to communicate accurately in both written and oral form. Therefore, according to the author, those who can't speak clearly aren't intelligent. This is a form of ableism. For those who don't know, ableism is defined as discrimination against those with disabilities. Another example is the book Out of My Mind, a great book about a disabled girl. She has trouble enunciating her words due to her disability, and people just assume she's not smart when actually she is really intelligent. No one will listen. All the crying child's family and friends will do is say, "I'm sorry," because they think he's unintelligent now. They won't even bother to listen to what he has to say, and no one will understand. I attend a summer camp every year that is only for disabled kids. There was a girl in my cabin who would slur her words. I'd have to ask her to repeat to understand. This is what is happening to the crying child. Lyric analysis. But I'm stuttering again. The crying child now has some speech impediments, and those around him think the bite caused him to be unintelligent. No one will listen and no one will understand. No one even listens to what he has to say, and even if they did, they wouldn't be able to understand. Let's keep going. Because I'm crying as much as I speak, because no one likes to hear me shriek, want to go back to where it all began. In these lines, the crying child provides more reasons as to why no one listens to him. Because I'm crying as much as I speak. This child has lived through some traumatizing hallucinations and survived being nearly killed by his own brother. You'd think he'd be crying a ton, considering the fact he cried almost constantly before he was bitten. When the majority of what he says is him talking while he cries, no one is going to listen to him. What the minigame show, the only person who will comfort the crying child is his Fredbear plush. None of his family is even going to attempt to comfort him. Plus, a crying person in general is hard to understand, but a crying person with speech impediments? That's going to be near impossible to decipher. Because no one likes to hear me shriek. What's interesting about this line is the way Tombstone wrote it, which is why I think it means more than everyone wants me to shut up when I cry. The way the line is written hints that the crying child is repeating what has been said to him. It sounds natural when his family might say to the crying child, "No one likes to hear you shriek," but it sounds weird when the child himself says, "No one likes to hear me shriek." Most people would say, "Everyone wants me to stop crying." Another interesting fact is that Tombstone picked the word shriek. Shriek, at least to me, makes me think of a horrible sounding cry of fear or pain. Horrible sounding. Doesn't that support his family's arguments that they don't like the sound of him crying? People tend to use loaded words, or at least words that support your argument when proving a point. Someone who thinks the child is crying too loudly wouldn't use a word like cry or sob. They'd use a word that implies loud crying, like shriek or wail. Want to go back to when it all began. This line is relatively simple. The crying child is saying that he wants to go back to when the events leading up to his birthday party, all began. He'd rather be perfectly able but being bullied by his brother than in the situation he's in now. Lyric analysis. Because I'm crying as much as I speak. The crying child is crying a whole lot more now, so people don't want to listen to what he has to say. Because no one likes to hear me shriek. His family doesn't like him crying and wants him to shut up. Want to go back to when it all began. He'd rather be bullied by his brother and Abel than be in the situation he's in now. So now that you understand all of that, let's go back to the first 3 lines. I have this urge to kill, I have this urge to kill to show that I'm alive. Here's all that the kid's going through right now. Everyone says I'm sorry but won't do anything substantial for him. Because of his speech impediments, no one thinks he's intelligent, and when he cries, everyone wants him to shut up. The crying child is definitely being dehumanized right now. Again, for those who don't know, dehumanization is defined as treating someone as less than human, but more commonly means having a normal standard of humans and having people you'd consider humans but don't really consider them normal, so therefore you don't have to treat them the same as you do the normal people. The crying child is being dehumanized because he's not being treated the same as the other people. So, if dehumanization is considering someone to be less than a normal human, another way to say this would be for the humanized to say the dehumanized are not alive. They are not humans, and they're obviously not animals, so they must not be alive. Now, one of the most important things to understand is that the concept of dehumanization is subconscious. A person who dehumanizes others would still say the others were technically a human and alive. However, that person subconsciously doesn't think they're human. If they treat all humans the same, then those who they don't treat the same therefore must not be a human, meaning they're not alive. I hope that makes sense. This child is being dehumanized and discriminated by everyone around him. They subconsciously view him as not alive. They don't care about him or pay him any attention. They don't even think he could do anything significant because they think he's stupid. But the crying child has one way to resolve this. He is getting an urge to kill someone. By killing someone, that would get him some attention pretty quick and prove to those around him that he can do significant things. So, by killing someone, the crying child is humanizing himself in the eyes of the dehumanizers. The people around him don't pay any attention to those they dehumanize. So if they pay attention to him, then he is humanized. By killing someone, he will humanize himself or show that he is alive. Lyric analysis. I have this urge to kill, I have this urge to kill to show that I'm alive. By killing someone, the crying child will then humanize himself and be considered by them to be alive. So now after analyzing the lyrics, I'd like to conclude this by proving I Got No Time does indeed address the concepts of ableism and dehumanization. I hope this changed the way you saw the second verse. Thanks for watching the video.